Am I a guitar snob now? Hey everybody, Jake Allen here. So I went and did it. I bought an expensive guitar last week. I laid down $2,500 for a Heritage brand H150 standard Les Paul style guitar. And frankly, I was blown away by it. I think it is probably the best looking, most well-made, best sounding electric guitar I have ever owned. So, does that make me a guitar snob now? Well, not so fast. First, what does it mean to be a snob? Well, the dictionary defines snob this way: a person with an exaggerated respect for high social position or wealth who seeks to associate with social superiors and dislikes people or activities regarded as lower class. Or a person who believes that their tastes in a particular area are superior to those of other people. When I started this channel, I had no idea what I was doing. Maybe I still don't. But what I did back then was to simply review whatever guitar I had found on Goodwill auctions at the time. And I was doing that simply out of my own curiosity. I found that I could get guitars on Goodwill auctions, sometimes for a healthy discount, then play them, do a review, sell them on Reverb, usually breaking even, then I could go out and buy more guitars. My channel didn't really have a theme or a goal. If anything, my CNC guitar tutorials were the theme of my channel. So then last year when I became monetized, I started following budget guitar groups and began buying budget guitars off Amazon, and it became clear that reviewing budget, aka cheap guitars, was very popular. In fact, based on my previous experience with some more expensive guitars from my Goodwill purchases, I came to the conclusion that there really wasn't any difference between a guitar that costs, say, $200 and a guitar that costs $2,000. This obviously ruffled a lot of feathers, and that debate was good for business. Anytime I posted videos about cheap versus expensive guitars, my views went way up. But then, so did the negative comments. I started getting comments accusing me of lying, accusing me of getting rich by shilling cheap guitars, telling me I shouldn't even be reviewing guitars, and on and on. This in turn, of course, made me become defensive, and I tried to give it right back to the people in the comments, and often my go-to comment was that they were just being snobs. Of course, the golden rule of any social media comments section is don't feed the trolls. You see, once someone has decided that they are right and everybody else is wrong, whether it's true or not, you will never change their minds. Not with insults, not with snappy comebacks, not with memes, not with data, and not with hard, cold facts. Until they are ready to change their mind themselves, they will forever be entrenched in their narrow point of view. So am I now a snob because I dared to buy an expensive guitar after championing cheap guitars for the past year? Have I turned to the dark side? Well, no. As the definition of snob points out, a person who believes that their tastes in a particular area are superior to those of other people. I don't believe that expensive guitars are superior. I don't believe that cheap guitars are superior. What I do believe is that guitars are awesome, whether they are $100 or $10,000. I think some expensive guitars are overpriced for what you get. Some cheap guitars are indeed junk, but not all. You see, snobbery comes in when you make a blanket assumption about an item based on some aspect about it that you deem unworthy. Like believing that all guitars made in China are junk or cheap just because they come from China. That's obviously not true. China makes some high-end guitars that are works of art and will compete neck and neck with any American guitar brand. There are also Chinese-made guitars that are indeed junk. Some sub-$100 Chinese guitars are pretty bad. But since the US doesn't manufacture any guitars in that price range, it's difficult to tell if USA-made guitars would be junk if they only cost $100. My guess is they would be. So why did I claim cheap guitars are just as good as expensive in the first place? Well, because I was operating with a limited set of data. I only had my own limited experience to pull from, and most of that experience was with Stratocaster style guitars. I own many Squires, a couple made in Mexico Fender Strats, that Tom DeLonge signature Strat, a couple USA made Fender Strats, and a lot of cheap import Strats. I also owned a Taylor 218 CE Deluxe, which I was very disappointed with despite its $1,500 price tag. A couple of Martin D28s, a USA made Guild, many Yamaha acoustic guitars, and acoustic guitars by Eastman Guitars out of China. I also owned an LTD Les Paul style guitar, an actual Gibson Les Paul Studio, and of course my recent guitars, Epiphone, Firefly, etc. And after reviewing all those guitars, I had a very difficult time justifying spending $2,000 for an American Strat over $200 for a Firefly Strat. To me, and again, this was based on my experience, the $200 Firefly was every bit as good as the USA Fender. Then, along came the Heritage Les Paul. So what happened? Why did this guitar have such an impact on me? And do I think it's 10 times as good as a cheap Les Paul style? Well, first let me say that much of what we think makes a guitar better than another guitar is personal preference. I've had a couple people say that they don't like the headstock on the Heritage. One person even commented that the Heritage in my review sounded like a cheap Les Paul copy. Yes, someone actually said that a $2,500 guitar that was largely handcrafted in a small shop using Seymour Duncan pickups that each cost as much as some of our guitars by themselves sounded cheap. You can't make this stuff up. Even fellow YouTuber Phil McKnight was sent a Heritage guitar to review, and after reviewing it, he said he sent it back because he felt the frets were too low. So obviously we don't all agree what is better. And better is not always tied to price. So let's talk about this Heritage guitar compared to, say, a Firefly. The Heritage guitar retails for about $2,600. The Firefly retails for right around $240. So the Heritage is more than 10 times the cost of the Firefly. The Heritage is made in Kalamazoo, Michigan, right here in the US. They are a small shop that ships out about 15 guitars a day. The Firefly is made in China, most likely by a factory that turns out dozens, maybe even 100 guitars a day. So obviously the guitar made in the US is going to be more costly right from the start because of the labor. So let's talk about how the guitars are made. The Heritage has a one-piece, genuine, also called Honduran mahogany body, while the Firefly actually looks like a thin mahogany veneer over probably multiple pieces of mahogany. The Firefly website doesn't specify what type of mahogany they are, but I'm guessing that they're made out of African mahogany. It also doesn't say whether it's made out of solid mahogany or not. Honduran mahogany can run about $14.99 a board foot, while African mahogany is around $10.99 a board foot. Obviously, wholesale prices will differ, so right away the body on the Heritage is better. Does it make a difference in how the guitar sounds? If it does, it's slight. But it means that the Firefly is made with cheaper materials, with more seams and thin veneers to make the guitar cosmetically look like it is a solid piece of wood. The same goes for necks. The neck on the Heritage guitar is a one-piece Honduran mahogany neck. The neck on the Firefly is multiple pieces. I know the neck on the Heritage is roughed out on a CNC machine and finished by hand. My guess is the neck on the Firefly was almost 100% made on a CNC with only the final sanding done by an actual person. Moving along to the fretboard, each is made from rosewood. Neither company states what type of rosewood we're seeing. The inlays are probably both acrylic, but neither company mentions what they're made out of on their websites. The inlays on the Heritage are cut on the CNC machine. My guess is they are as well on the Firefly. My Firefly has a slight flaw in one of the inlays. Binding is all similar. Frets on the Firefly are ball end stainless. Frets on the Heritage are Jescar nickel frets. Jescar frets are made in the US. Both guitars weigh in around 9 pounds. Both have flame maple tops. The Heritage has a 5/8 inch thick Michigan flame maple top. The Firefly very well could be a thin veneer. Their website says maple top but doesn't specify how thick it is or where the maple came from. Usually it's Canadian maple. The flame top on the Firefly looks suspiciously like a print, but I can't verify that. It just doesn't look quite right. Of course, my Firefly has that relic finish on it, which makes an apples to apples comparison a little difficult. The Heritage also has a nitrocellulose finish, which by many is considered the best. Now on to the electronics. The Heritage guitar has full-size CTS pots and Switchcraft 3-way switch and Switchcraft jack. Switchcraft is made in the US, and CTS pots are often associated with higher cost guitars. The pickups on the Heritage are Seymour Duncan 59s. These are Alnico pickups, and a single pickup costs retail about $120 each. So just 2 of the pickups in the Heritage cost as much as the entire Firefly guitar itself. So how do they sound? Does all this mean that the Heritage guitar is better than the Firefly? After all, you could spend $240 and install the same pickups that are in the Heritage in the Firefly, and theoretically they would sound the same. And you'd still be well under the cost of the Heritage guitar after upgrading the Firefly. Well, again, that's not for me to say which is better. That's why I believe that despite some of the comments, I don't fit the definition of a guitar snob. Do I think the Heritage is a great guitar? Yes. Due to the history behind where it was made, my attachment to it, and how good I think it sounds and plays, I believe this is the best electric guitar I've ever owned. Does that mean I now think that guitars like the Firefly are garbage? No. I like the Firefly brand. In my experience, they have always been consistently good. But now I know what sets a guitar like the Heritage apart from the Firefly. But that doesn't mean that every guitar in the $2,000 or $3,000 price range will outshine a guitar in the $200 to $500 price range. I'm about to review a Gibson SG that I got yesterday. Retails for around $1,800. I happened to get a really good deal on this one. And just my initial impression of it is that it's not any better than the Epiphone SG that I got that costs only $550 retail. So with all things, your mileage may vary. So no, I have not become a guitar snob. I'm not turning my back on the budget guitar community, and I don't think you always get what you pay for. But when you find the guitar, the one for you that you just click with. It can feel magical despite what you paid for it. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I'm Jay Sallin. We'll see you next time.